Questions? No questions. All righty. Let's move on now to item number 9, the KPMG presentation.
So if I can do the introduction here today, Mr. Chairman, you know that we placed on June the 13th, finally we placed a contract with KPMG, so contract award for the financial services to assist us both in the business plan but also in other activities related to financial services for the authority. So there was a request, and it's quite normal, that the company present themselves. And we have with us today Mr. Kurt Ramey, who's a partner of KPMG, and he's going to be presenting KPMG as far as them and their interface with the authority. Thank you. Kurt.
Thank you,
Ramey, welcome.
Thank you very much, Chairman and members. We're up. Excellent. I'll only take
Mr. Ramey, so that Ms. Schenk can hear you, you'll need to speak right in the microphone there.
Is this better?
I think it's better.
Perfect.
Right.
My name, as Rulof mentioned, is Kurt Ramey. I'm a partner with KPMG. And I'll only take a few minutes to walk through a little bit about what our role is as the financial advisor for the authority and a little bit about the people that are working with the authority, and then I'd be available to answer any questions. Let's go on to the next slide. We really have 4 activities that we're working on. First and foremost, we're preparing the financial analysis that sits underneath the business plan, which has to support the structure that General Van Winkle spoke to you about just a little bit ago. So all of those alternatives, the ICS, how it blows into the iOS, and then eventually Beta Basin, and then to phase 1, requires financial analysis to set up underneath it so you can understand where revenues, capital, and operating and maintenance costs come out, and to fundamentally understand how cash flows through these projects, and then to provide you information so that you can make decisions on the various alternatives. So that's first and foremost. Once we kind of have a view of how cash flow works relative to ridership and cost flow, we can look at business model options, and there's opportunities for private sector involvement. There's going to be a ton of public work in this that is very common in these major projects around the world. We've worked in many high-speed rail projects across the world, and they're always sort of combinations of public and private structures, and we want to be able to present to you the alternatives relative to how risks and options and efficiencies flow out of those. And then out of that comes the potential for financing alternatives. Now, financing alternatives, again, drives from cash flow. As we all know, there's no free money. There are, in the private sector, that's driven by cash flow, and we want to be able to work with you to understand that and how this project works. There is another subset document, which is the financial plans required for Prop 1A. And that is specifically for the ICS initial iOS and basically the initial appropriation request that goes forward again. So there's 2 documents that we'll be working on. We started on the 13th of June. We have a very short window. We are on the ground. We're engaged. We're working hard. We have a lot to do, but I think we've made great progress in a short period of time, and I'm optimistic that we're going to be in front of you with something that you're pleased with. In terms of our background, it really, I think, it leverages 3 things. One, we have some international structuring and financing experience with high speed around the world, and we want to bring some of those lessons learned not just to the authority but to the business plan, so that the business plan can be couched in terms of this is how other people have solved similar problems to you. They're, in our view, are big questions, but they're not questions that aren't asked in all big projects. Okay, whenever an investor is asked for money, they always ask for things like how many people are going to write it, how long is this going to take, how much is this going to cost. And we need to be able to explain that in a very transparent and open way with the alternatives, very carefully explaining what we know and what we don't know. And for those things that we don't know, when we can know them and what we will do at those points. Okay, so there's no silver bullet in this. We think we do a very good job at what we do, but a lot of that is just explaining the facts. We are the largest of the financial advisors in this sort of alternative procurement market in the U.S., and we have clients across the country. And importantly, we are the only team that has closed P3 transactions in this state. There's a slide on the next page that I'd be happy to answer any questions about, but these are some of the similar projects that team members, not just our firm, but team members that are working on this project have been involved in. And then finally, this is our team, and I'd just like to point out a couple of members. Barbara Lloyd is our project manager. Some of you may know her. She was a deputy treasurer for the state of California under Phil Angelides. She's been in investment banking. She's been around this project. And importantly, she has tremendous background doing big financing transactions in the state. And then Daryl Murphy, who's from London, was the director of infrastructure project finance for HSBC, and from his background, he did many of those big international projects that you saw on the previous page. So we really tried to bring sort of a combination of skills to you. We believe that's what's going to be needed here, and we have a lot of work to do, and we're prepared and happy to be here. I'd be happy to take any questions.
Mr. Raby, where are you physically located?
I live in Los Angeles. Our offices are in Sacramento at 300 Capitol Mall.
Okay. Great. Other questions? We're happy to have you here. Thank you.
I have a couple questions. So you're in Los Angeles with Mark Hutchins?
Yes.
And the people that are on your team that you just had up here on the org chart, those are all folks in your office, or are these people being plucked from around the world?
Kind of going from, Kurt Ramey and Barbara Lloyd are in Los Angeles. Liam Kelly is in San Francisco. Daryl Murphy is in London. Ian Tester is in Austin, Texas. And Tom Mulvihill is in New York. So combination.
And do you feel like you have the resources that you need, both in terms of these folks and their talent, to get this job done timely?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. No more questions.
Good question.
I have a question, if I may.
Sure, Ms. Schenk.
Yeah. Well, welcome, first of all. And my question is really a follow-on to the previous one, and that is, how confident are you that we can get the kind of work product on time that we need, particularly to present to stakeholders and legislators, et cetera? Is everyone on your team sort of exquisitely sensitive to the criticisms that have been leveled at the High-Speed Rail Authority and staff about the prior efforts, and how confident are you that we can answer those criticisms and do it on time?
Three parts to that question. One, we are very closely tuned into kind of the history and the sensitivities of the project. We followed this project for multiple years before we got here, and it's something that we, as a firm, decided was very important. It was something we wanted to do, and we sort of knew what we were getting into. The second piece is on the quality and the completeness of the analysis that's going to be available effectively in September. There will be a very quality analysis of the data that is available at that time. And I think that that's my one qualification to you. There can't be a silver bullet, as I said, for things that we don't know. We won't have all of the information on where all federal money is coming from for the entire project. We all know that. However, for the information that we do have. I think you will see the analysis of where we are. I think you'll see an analysis of how that build-out strategy can work, what your options are, what the alternatives are when a particular IOS begins to throw off cash and begins to become defined as an IOS, what the requirements for federal money are over time and in what forms those are. What kinds of programs seem to be on the drawing board with the federal government that would be beneficial. And I absolutely believe that we will have all of that to you on time. We understand that the budget, the time frame is not negotiable.
Well, we repose a lot of confidence in you. And one final question. I am assuming that if invited to present to the legislature that you and your firm would be willing to do so.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Commissioner Pringle.
Good. There was no hesitation in that. Yes. I'm just looking across this board, and I think we're mixed with some folks that have been here 2 to 4 years and some that have been here within a year. But just to put it in context, Kurt specifically and KPMG in the office he was involved with is who we hired in 2009 or 2008 to establish for this board a new structure, moving from a planning agency to a construction agency. So the organizational chart and those elements that we have been working to fill those spots that our CEO has been responsible for really is the work product that KPMG and Kurt Ramio oversaw. I think Kurt may have brushed past the fact that Barbara Lloyd is a critical part of this team, but she was also a critical part of our prior financial advising team, but her company separated from the financial advisor that we had. Therefore, I point that out only because the 2 top names on this chart are people who have been familiar with our organization, and particularly with Barbara, have been very focused and aware of the financial needs and challenges we face for many, many years. And further, I do think it is good to have a financial advisor group that is, to a great degree, California-centric, or at least located here, whereas our last group with some very good talents and strengths, they were located in New York. So for board meetings and such, they came here. They were always diligent and always came and participated. But I think there's a little different shift here when you have someone with the principal in a California office. And he's participated in a lot of board meetings or attended before he even had a contract, so that's impressive.
That's good
But I want to make sure you knew that.
That's good background. Thank you.
Born and raised in Atwater, California.
Could you do us a favor and send us, I think the entire board's interested in the backgrounds of bios on your key team members.
Yes.
As well as, I know you've got some other teammates besides KPMG. If you could just send us information, either, I suppose the best way to do it is through Mr. vanArk. If you'd go ahead and send it to Mr. vanArk, and I'll ask Mr. vanArk to distribute it to the board.
I will do that.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. All right. So item number 10, members' reports. I'll give a brief report. We had an interaction and a speech with the Spanish delegation. The Spaniards seem to be quite interested in assisting in any way they possibly can in our project here. A number of companies, as well as the government of Spain and other institutions in Spain, were very receptive to meeting with us and want to help us. That's my report. Other reports? Any other reports?
Just briefly mention, Mr. Chairman and board members, that yesterday sometime this week, I had the opportunity to speak at the kickoff meeting of the Los Angeles Chamber of Commerce High-Speed Rail Task Force, and a very good meeting with a lot of folks. One person was very noticeable in his absence, in Mr. Toledo, but other than that, there was a tremendous turnout of folks. But I really do think that chamber has always been engaged and supportive, but now seeks to become even more so.
I understand you did an excellent job, and my presence was certainly not necessary. Thanks for being there.
All right. Other reports? CEO, Mr. vanArk.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'm going to be shorter today than I was last month. So staffing at the authority, we are now actively searching for Chief Program Manager, Chief Financial Officer, Regional Director, Central Valley, Regional Director, Bay Area, Chief Counsel, Chief of External Affairs, Risk Manager, and these are just the senior management positions. So, you know, we are in full swing to improve the situation at the authority. The LAO's report, there were some people making statements on that today. It was dated May the 20th. We did respond to it on June the 20th, and the peer review, the legislative peer review, I always try and keep them separate, responded to the Senate Select Committee on this report with a letter of July the 1st, 2011. On the communications and outreach, we've already discussed the fact that Ogilvy would be leaving the project. I'd like to repeat what I stated at the June board meeting. Communications and outreach for a project of this magnitude is huge. This is not only about 800 miles of alignment. It's most probably more like double that amount of miles because we have alternatives all over the place. That means we have to talk to so many more people, and it touches just, you know, millions of people within the whole of California. That's not an excuse. I mean, I'm just saying it is a big task, and therefore, as we search for new communications and outreach consultants, obviously this is a very important task for us. I would like to mention again, obviously, that as even today you heard, some areas are relatively or quite happy, and we got some supporters thanking certain people and some others being unhappy with the same people. There's no, from our side and from our staff, if you ever find anybody that has a personal issue with you, you must tell me, because I don't believe any of our staff have got any personal feelings against any area or section of the alignment or any county or city or town. We will treat all the people the same. That is my job to ensure that. On the budget side, I reported in detail last month on the budget, but as you know, the official budget was signed by the governor and is in effect. It principally incorporates nearly everything that I presented in detail last month. However, there are a few items, smaller items, that I would just like to point out to you, and they are the following. Firstly, we had a value of $47.3 million, which we carry over from last budget year to this budget year, 11-12. Then, by some legislation, the trailer bill, about $69 million, which equates to about a third of our budget, would be subject to the submission on October the 14th and a 60-day review of the funding plan you just heard KPMG mention, and a review of revenue analysis, a Bakersfield to Los Angeles outreach plan, and a formal response to the Eshu, Samithia, and Gordon statement, as well as a formal response to the LAO report, which has already been submitted to the legislature. We did receive the $2.4 million for communications and outreach, which was still in debate the last time I presented to you, so they did agree to that. We did receive $1.25 million in our budget for work with Caltrans, with the possibility of increasing it by $1 more million. We just need to go to the Department of Finance if we need that extra million. The $1.1 million that had been incorporated for Caltrain, for the Peninsula Corridor, was not approved, and the authority was informed that we should use monies that are in the other part of our budget, which is in the capital outlay budget. Unfortunately, the capital outlay budget for that particular alignment section is needed for other activities. So we do not necessarily have money in our budget for funding the Peninsula Rail project joint venture with Caltrain at this stage, and we're trying to see what we can do to resolve that. Our budget incorporates 15 additional PYs, as I call them, or heads in the budget, which means that obviously we can still hire all the ones that we haven't been able to hire up to now, but in addition to that, another 15, which would then bring the total head count in the authority to about, well, 54 and a half. It works out to 54 and a half people. $2.25 million was included in the last minutes to fund the Sacramento to Merced work, and $3.22 million was included to fund the Ultimate Pass section, which, as you know, is not a pure high-speed rail. It's intermediate high-speed rail joint development that we're doing. Unfortunately, nothing was included in the budget to fund the Los Angeles to San Diego section, and we're having a look at that at the moment. The Agricultural Working Group, this we had requested and directed to the county agricultural commissioners of all the counties involved here in the Central Valley a letter requesting their participation, as well as a nomination of technical experts to participate in our agricultural working group. Unfortunately, although we did receive responses, the responses have mainly been about technical assistance. Most of the commissioners themselves, due to budget and other related difficulties, have not yet or have not been able to agree to join the agricultural working group. But we are not going to give up. We're going to try and make sure that they do participate. We had the visit by the DOT, but I think Hans van Winkel has already mentioned that, in particular, the safety and technical people, which is also very important for us because high-speed rail and safety are very close together, and we need to ensure that we get the right standards for the United States of America to ensure the right safety levels for these new high-speed rail systems. I would like to just make the mention again, I know it's been said today, that the progress on the business plan and the funding plan continues, but that we have appointed Jeff Morales. He was the past executive director of Caltrans to head this activity. So he, in fact, is leading this activity for us at the authority. Mr. Morales is presently employed by our PMT contractor, Parsons Brinkhoff, and we are very happy that he's taken this task on and leading it for us. There will be economic impact roundtables, discussions with the various regions of the state, so that it is not just ourselves, but the regional economic officials that will participate as well in inputs to make sure that the business plan is fully conclusive. Federal funding for the Bay Area Positive Train Control project. We signed an agreement with the FRA to put $16 million towards the design of a signaling technology in the Bay Area, which would benefit Caltrain to some extent, but it actually benefits us as high-speed rail. It is mainly there to develop an interface. There are many places in this, on our alignment where we would either run adjacent to or even run together with shared track with other rail systems. And that means we have to design a system that will allow a very high-speed rail signaling and a low-speed rail PTC, we refer to as positive train control signaling system, to work together. And that is what this particular $16 million was requested for, and the FRA funded it for us. In addition to the Spanish delegation that was mentioned before by the chairman, we had the Koreans and the Japanese here during the month, and there's a lot of interest from all these parties to support the project and to help us also on a technical basis. We're having a small business forum or industry forum. I think there were flyers handed out to you people today. This will take place in Fresno on September the 8th. For those of you who are still here from the small business side, this is another real push from our side to make sure that we get the big industrial groups and the prime contractors, and together with the small business groups. In particular, there was a request, why not do it in the Central Valley? This is where it's all going to start. So that's why we are doing it in the Central Valley. It obviously falls in line with our RFQ process, timing-wise, so it will be just at more or less the same time that the RFQs are out, and these prime contractors will be contacting and trying to build teams with the small business groups. So I believe it's going to be successful because we'll put all our efforts into making it successful, similar to what we tried to do and did do in Los Angeles after the RFEI conference. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. vanArk. All righty. We have additional public comment, and thank you, all of you who've remained here today. And here's what I'm going to do. Is I'm going to try to group the public commentators by subject matter. And so first, we're going to take Mr. Dean, Ms. Reagan, Ms. McCrae, Mr. Shelton, Rainbow Bird, and Cynthia Sterling. And that'll be sort of group one. Then Karen Kamaguchi, Mark Levin, Andrew Picard, and Dennis Fox. That'll be group two. Then the group there's a large group from Kings County. There's over 20. That'll be group three. And then finally, Mr. Dan Dolan. So starting with Mr. Dean.
We're going to be a lot shorter than we initially, and I want to thank you again for coming. And I have given the staff a 30-second intro, and that'll pretty much say what we want to say. So if you would roll that, play that for the board.
What we try to do with this conference is reach out to the entire business community of Bakersfield, not just the minority community or the small business community, but the entire community. And let's make this a conference for Bakersfield. We found out that Caltrans at the time, statewide, was putting together a small business council that gave small trade associations an opportunity to be a part, to sit at the table and help shape policy, to have a voice to talk about how the small business community can work with Caltrans to help meet the goals and also have a voice.
That it shows you that for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been actively working on getting DBE small business ready for the high-speed rail, and the growth is coming to the Central Valley. And we hold a regional conference in Kern County right next door to Holiday Inn every year around January, and that's one of our conferences, to bring all the players together, the public agencies, the prime contractors, and the small players, and get them certified and get them in a position so they can participate on not just potential high speed, but all transportation-related projects that receive federal dollars. Now, there's 3 things that our staff's going to talk about that we think that need to be a part of a successful program that the high-speed rail need to include. And our purpose is to try to help facilitate that, not to criticize, but to help facilitate that because of the time frame we're on. There needs to be an effective outreach program. There needs to be a programs in place to remove barrier like bonding and insurance and those types of things. So the other presenters are going to talk about that. And then the last one is a training component to get these guys, these smaller firms that have never done public sector projects, ready, able, and qualified for prime contractors that they may want to subcontract with. So that's all the pieces of what we're going to be talking about. Not today, but that's part of what our effort is. And then the last thing I'll say is Aldrine McCraig. She had to leave because there's another function that's going on in Stockton. She came in from Sacramento to attend to make the remarks. And the reason why we invited her, she's a member of the team, because when I first addressed this board, I talked about perhaps looking at the Century Freeway project as a model to make sure that you get local participation along where you build out your route. And she was the one that worked for Caltrans for 50 years. She overseen the high-speed rail, the Century Freeway project. And she was very instrumental in that. So she brings a lot of knowledge and history, and she's a part of the team. So I'll stop there now and then just let the other presenters make their remarks. And right after this, we're doing a bonding and insurance workshop at the Kern County COG office. And we're inviting some of the staff or some of the board members that want to know more in detail where we can talk Pacific with more time. That's what that's about. So I'll stop there, and thank you again for allowing me.
Thank you. By the way, before I forget, whoever put together the presentation, the display, the static display in the front, that's an excellent job. All righty. Ms. Reagan? Is it Ms. Reagan? All right.
Good afternoon, Chairman Umberg, and to the other members of the authority. It's really good to be here. My name is Bernita Reagan. Again, I'm Senior Vice President with Meriwether and Williams Insurance Services, which I think some of you have heard about. Our company is a minority woman-owned business, one of the largest brokerage companies for small businesses here on the West Coast. And our approach